I'm excited to now have more of an excuse to online shop and stay on TikTok and Instagram during the week because I'm researching for next week's pod.
This week in e-commerce, episode 92. I am Mal Chia, back with you for another week, and joining me for her first official episode as my new co-host is Alex Ross. Alex, welcome back.
Yes, hello. Hi, Mal. Thank you so much. Exciting news, I suppose.
It is. I kind of teased it last week that I was going to get a new co-host, and Here you are.
Yep, super excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I know we talk a lot at all the different e-commerce events, and you've been on the show a few times, so you just made for the perfect and most natural co-host to join me moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm excited to now have more of an excuse to online shop and stay on TikTok and Instagram during the week because I'm researching for next week's pod.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is always something which is going on. And how have you been though in the last in year to date? This year has just flown by.
It has. I don't know. It's, time always goes quicker. I think that we're really starting to think about Black Friday now again, which is always a bit of a rude shock to the calendar. But it's been a really good start to the year. Just hectic. This industry doesn't slow down.
It certainly doesn't. And we are right in the middle of end of financial year sales. So you're bringing up Black Friday and people haven't even got past their EOFY sales yet.
Yeah, I think talking with brands, though, every opportunity leading up to Black Friday is building the lists. Even this end of financial year, it's a strong offer. It's not the strongest offer we'll see this year. How can you start to really gear that strategy into Black Friday?
Any trends which you're seeing at the moment in terms of like some of the offers which are out there?
I've been seeing good use of time-based offers. So let's say 40% off for 4 hours, really driving that urgency, having badges are like stepping it down, 1 day left, an hour left until sale, those types of urgency call outs.
Yeah, nice. And have you bought anything yet?
Not from in the financial year yet, but that's because I know it's going to ramp up, right? So I do have my eye on a dryer. It's too cold to keep on hanging my clothing out. What about you? What have you guys on?
So far, nothing right now. I'm probably gonna wait. I know there's quite a few starting next week. Although I did notice from trend-wise that a lot of people were starting their sales very, very early this year. From like the start of June, they were in their financial year sales. We're calling them mid-year sales, and possibly they'll end that and then go with an even harder end of financial year sale. It's just like they just keep coming earlier and earlier.
Yep. It's nothing new at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of sales, we're going to kick straight into it, and we're going to be talking first of all, just on a bit of a reshuffle about the ACCC and last Black Friday sales, where a few big retailers, and the ones which were listed in the Inside Retail article were Michael Hill, My House, and Hair House. They've been hit with penalties from the ACCC for their dodgy Black Friday sale practices. In particular, it looks like they were found for misleading ads, which were overstating the size of the discounts, in particular showing that they had site-wide discounts when really a large chunk of the site wasn't on sale, but also claiming that they were discounts up to a certain percentage when really there was nothing up to or very little, which was at that certain percentage. So starting to see a lot more of this happening, and also the ACCC actually starting to take some action and customers not being particularly happy about this, hence why they're complaining. So Alex, you've worked a lot in retail. How common is this type of behavior which you've seen?
I think it's whether it's like deliberate or not, a lot of it just comes down to the complexity of these offers. It's initially 20% off and then an additional % off on these certain products, and then they layer and then they apply at the cart, and being, as a consumer, confused about all of the messaging that you're being sent about these different sales as well. So I think not intentionally common, but I think we need to be really careful heading into this next peak retail period about having really clear offers.
Trust is such an important thing, and it's so easy to lose trust. And you think about all these retailers, they're not small retailers. Like Michael Hill, very significant retailer, Hair House, also very significant as well. That it's not just about them copying the fines, but it's also about consumers who are going to lose trust of them. So the next sale, you got to think about their email, their click-through rates, their open rates are probably going to drop. The conversion rate is probably going to tank because customers are less likely to trust them. So not only are people getting fatigued by the discounts, but they're also to be less trusting of the retailers, whether this is genuinely a good offer or not, and are more likely to shop around.
Yeah, well, we saw it last year with the supermarkets and the lack of trust. And I think just consumers are realizing that they do have more of a voice, particularly with social media, to call this stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I've seen a lot as well, this particular sale, the biggest sale of the year. It's like, hang on. It's not going to be the biggest sale of the year. You and I both know, we all know that the biggest sale of the year is going to be November. So why are you saying now this is going to be the biggest sale of the year?
Yeah. Or if they then back that up, right? Compare it. I doubt it is, like you said.
Yeah. And well, I think that's what people rely on as well, that no one's going to go back and check, or, we're going to have different products by then. So are you going to be able to make that comparison? Probably not. But at the same time, if you keep saying it's the biggest, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like,
Yes.
people are going to eventually become desensitized to it. So what is actually going to be the biggest if everything's the biggest?
Yeah. How many different subject lines can you have for your emails about your big sale?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm encouraging a lot of the brands who I speak to actually experiment with a little bit about their dynamics as well. We're not necessarily focusing on the biggest discount possible, but looking at how they can value add without necessarily having to discount. With things like bundling, so putting like high margin and low margin products together so that the overall value, like, you're still getting a significant discount, but from a retailer point of view, it's actually less of a hit because you're combining those high margin and low margin products. It doesn't work for everyone, but that's definitely a strategy which I've seen work quite well before for other brands.
No, it's a good way to build loyalty as well. Purchasing more products, trying more of their range, getting hooked in different ways. You want to be growing that average order value for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely about just adding value, like actually adding real value to your customers, rather than trying to pull the wool over their eyes with imaginary discounts.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so moving on to our next story, we're going to be talking moving from misleading discounts to brands that are not quite doing so well at the moment, and that's Alchemy Brands. So Alchemy Brands have recently announced that National Geographic stores are going to be officially shutting down across Australia. So Alchemy, this comes off the back of Ginger and Smart and Surf Stitch, which were recently sold to an undisclosed buyer. I don't think there's any information about who that is yet, but also that they're moving away from National Geographic now, which was a partnership initially with
Yeah, I don't know, National Geographic has a place in my heart. I don't know, as a child being like really excited by the types of games that they had and the experiments and all of that really fun interactional education games. What do you think?
Well, like you said, they're such an iconic brand, right? Like
Yeah.
they've got so much brand equity when you think about like nature and things like that. And I've been to some of the National Geographic stores before, and they're fantastic. Or maybe I'm getting them confused with Australian Geographic. A lot of people do, but National Geographic, very iconic brand who are very well known in their space. But what surprised me about the article was that there were only 3 stores. They only had a store in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney,
Mm.
and they've now all since closed. And I wonder whether part of it is that that there's not enough retail footprint for them in the first place. They just didn't have enough reach for people to go there. But also in terms of their product offering as well, was it distinctive enough that people would want to go there in store? So I believe that they're still going to be running the online business, but just closing the stores.
Yeah, interesting. You talk about like not enough footprint. There's no answer to the right magic number there.
I think it's probably just like you need enough so that there's enough brand physical availability, as Byron Scott would say, that people that's actually around enough that people are going to shop from you. If you look at a JB Hi-Fi, for instance, high physical availability. There's a JB Hi-Fi everywhere, and they offer the exact same type of experience. So if you are looking for electronic goods or CDs or DVDs, no one buys CDs or DVDs anymore. Vinyl, I buy vinyl from JB Hi-Fi. You can find them because it's just there and they're everywhere. Whereas National Geographic, for their particular niche, there just weren't enough of them. Potentially. I'm hypothesizing here without really understanding what the downfall is. But it also looks like, as part of this as well, it's like they're moving, Alchemy Brands anyway, is moving away from National Geographic towards something which actually does have a lot of high cultural value and isn't easily replaceable, which is Lego.
Right.
So that's now, along with General Pants, their other property. So they have General Pants Co. and Lego. And General Pants, I remember someone wrote, I think it might have been Carla Penn Khan wrote, or maybe maybe Julie Mathers was writing on LinkedIn about how they remember shopping at General Pants like 20 years ago, but it hasn't really moved on, and now it's very discount driven. So we'll see about that one. But on the flip side to that is Lego, which has such high cultural relevance and is really, probably one of the hottest consumer brands and definitely the hottest toy brand out there at the moment.
Yeah, Lego, there's a lot of competition when it comes to, their space, but they're so well known. The brand equity is there, the trust is there. It's a location in itself more so than their other stores that they've disclosed, right?
Yeah, and it's very experiential. You go into the Lego stores, you can play with the Lego, you can see all the different kits. There's a whole lot of FOMO when you go in there because you see some amazing kits. I was in the Lego store in Singapore a couple of weeks ago, and it was incredible. My kids did not want to leave there. You could see all the different licenses. They had like a whole F1 world, and there's like a Marvel world, and there's this and that. There's Harry Potter. There's so many things where whether you're young or old to look at. Whereas National Geographic, it's a great brand, but in terms of how well does it extend to being licenses, does anyone care if they have a National Geographic telescope or National Geographic khaki vest? Probably not too much.
Mm.
But Lego, you want the Oscar Piastri F1 Lego kit. You want the Harry Potter, Hogwarts Lego kit. And they have it for all the age ranges as well, where they not only have the ones for the younger kids, like 6 and 8, but they also have like the 10,000 piece sets for the adults as well. So it's become this real thing where it just transcends ages and demographics and cuts across lots of different cultures as well, where it appeals to everyone.
And the cultures and the collaboration piece, right? The Star Wars collabs, all of that just grabs at lots of different age groups and demographics.
Yeah, and you need that to be able to connect with your customers now. Hence why licensing, I think, is so big at the moment. I talked about this last week, but Elite 11, they did their AFL collaboration, and so that sold out in like an hour, or something. And people were going in there doing the buy one item at a time because they're afraid it might sell out if they try to buy two.
Yeah, for sure. Licensing, collabs, hey, stay relevant with an old brand like that.
Yeah. And look, also for new brands as well, as a way to be able to regain cultural relevance. Or just quickly acquire cultural relevance, I should say.
Yeah, that's really true.
Well, speaking of culturally relevant, there's probably nothing more culturally relevant now than Labubu. And I can't believe this is the first time I've talked about Labubu on the show. But Labubu, Alex, I'm going to let you explain what Labubus are, if anyone who doesn't know.
I had to Google, myself. Labubu, the small kind of plush toy, really distinct, really funny, evoking a lot of content on TikTok, basically going viral. My understanding is that they're 10 to 30 USD, so not very expensive, maybe hard to find, but everybody's obsessed with them as being that number one accessory on their handbags, on their drink bottles, on their keyring.
Yeah, and there's like limited edition Labubus now, and there's a life-size one sold for $250,000.
Wow.
Over the weekend, which I saw. And people are like trading them like hotcakes because they're all unique from what I believe as well. Like when you buy the Labubu, you don't actually know what you're going to get. So it's a bit like, it's a bit of a gamble. If you get something which is really rare, suddenly you could hit the jackpot and it's worth $20,000, $30,000. You see some of the lines as well for Labubu around the world, and people are queuing up like around the block, like crazy for that. And even Australia too.
It's really reminiscent of Beanie Babies. I'm not sure if you remember those. And, you had all of the identity information. You could trade them. There were mystery packs, which was similar, where you could get something that was really rare. That scarcity, I think it's that novelty, a little bit of delight in the day for not a lot of cash.
That's interesting. So you're thinking this is a way where people are just obsessing over something like this because they're kind of looking for like life's little luxury, similar to like the lipstick effect.
Exactly. Yes, small luxury, small kind of like detachment from reality in a way that's like enjoyable. And I think, just the lipstick effect, it's super interesting, right?
And it's something where I think charms as well, if you look at in the luxury sector, charms are such a big seller at the moment. And a lot of the luxury brands who had previously been not doing it tough, but, really starting to see their sales start to decline are now really leaning into these novelty products like charms to be able to grow their sales again. And I think with the Labubus, it's like they were popularized because a lot of the celebrities as well, like Rhiannon, Lisa from Blackpink, had them on their bags, and our friend Emily Elvey also has a Labubu on her bag.
Yeah, I'm seeing them everywhere. I think it's, yeah, just another example of pop culture relevance, just how quick things can change
Mm.
and obsessions come out of nowhere and just break the bank for these new brands.
Yeah, because Labubu, they're not actually a new product. So they actually came out in 2019, originally in China, but it's only in like the last 6 months or so, since 2024, late 2024, where they've really, just grown in popularity, have now become this whole big cultural movement now.
I believe it was a K-pop star that was first kind of cited with the bigger fashion icon, and then that's what took it off in 2024.
Yeah, and it's something which also lends itself very well to our age as well, where they're this. So I guess for a lot of people, and I'm included, I think they're really cute.
Yes.
They're like super cute, and you see them, you fetishize them, you want them, and they're also taking off across TikTok as well. So like TikTok, they're on TikTok. A lot of people are sharing their Labubus. There's a pop-up shop now in Harrods. It's really quite crazy, like how much it's grown. And you can look at, like I said before, how this is then translating across to the luxury sector as well, where I think a lot of brands like Maison de Sabre, who we both know, their biggest seller at the moment are fruit charms. Just these really cute novelty fruit charms. Matter of fact, they sold like $500,000 of like lemon. They did a restock with their lemon fruit charms, sold $500,000 of that in like a couple of hours. And they were just flying off the shelves because people are just desiring this, where they're not necessarily looking for that $20,000 handbag anymore.
Mhm.
But this is a way for them to still buy something which gives them that little bit of joy in their
Yep.
lives.
Yeah, the small little things.
And I should probably note as well that the person who coined that phrase around the lipstick effect actually passed away. So he was actually the heir to the Estee Lauder fortune, recently ran the company. I think he's about 90 or so years old. He passed away on the weekend. Credit to him. I can't actually remember the first name, but yeah, last name Lauder, part of the Estee Lauder family.
I had no idea that he or they were even related to the industry.
Yeah. So sorry. So, what are some other brands which you're seeing at the moment who are kind of nailing this whole piece around novelty and these little moments of joy?
That's a good question. I think that I think I've spoken about it before on the podcast, dopamine dressing,
Mm-hmm.
finding joy in how you express yourself in terms of clothing accessories, right? So the boo-boos, these charms from Mason Sabre, having bit of color in kind of like product ranges. Even, I don't know, maybe I'm shopping for a formal dress at the moment and on, Meshki and Baby Boo and just seeing sparkles and a lot of fun. Maybe that's more my style though. There is probably more, black plain dresses out there too. But just brands getting involved with that kind of joy.
Yeah, I think that is reflective of the current climate as well, where there is so much uncertainty at the moment. There's so many things, negative things going on in the world. Obviously, over the weekend, we've got wars breaking out between Iran and Israel, or Gaza. What's happening in Ukraine, which has been happening for a number of years now. There's so much division out there that I think people are looking for things to help find their identity. And Labubu, Maison de Sabre fruit charms,
Crocs.
Crocs, Gibbets, couple of $100 million business. And also, like in this other article which I shared as well, like someone purchasing like $20,000 for a hamburger ring. It's something which is just like completely novelty and a little bit cheesy, I guess, to some people, but it just is something which will bring them that joy because it reflects their personality and it says something about them. In the same way that I'm seeing more and more people, me being a heavy metalhead, who are going out and wearing their metal t-shirts as a badge of honor because it says something about them. Because I think more and more we're looking for ways to express our individuality and share the things we love because there's so much negativity out in the world.
Yeah. And from a marketing standpoint, it leads to great word of mouth, right? Having these really distinct products that you can't miss, a Labubu or a hamburger ring or, beautiful little things that you notice on somebody, rather than just a black plain t-shirt that no one's going to think about where that came.
And where do you think AI goes with this? Like, do you think this is something which AI will take away this creativity and individuality, or is it something which can actually support that?
I think that we're seeing AI with marketing like push the boundaries in really creative, fun ways. those big balloons that are brand shaped that go into icebergs or in the middle of New York, whatever. So I think it's being able to use AI in those ways, right?
Because it's interesting. I was talking with a couple of retailers last week we were talking about billboards, and they were like, "You don't need a billboard in Times Square. You can just create an AI." But my thought was like, everyone's doing that though. Everyone's running an ad. Like even now in Black Friday, it's like I'm pretty sure I've seen at least half a dozen brands who are showing that our end of financial year sale is like on this billboard in Times Square. I'm like going, hang on, no, it's not. Not all your brands have a billboard in Times Square, but they're putting it out there. So my concern about AI is always just like, what happens to creativity when everyone is just copying each other? We still need to engineer the AI, to prompt the AI in a way to come up with something which is going to be original and stand out in the market.
Yeah.
Like a Labubu.
Like a Labubu. It's just fun to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that just with that intersection of online versus real life, if you will, having physical billboards rather than just an AI created one that you put on an Instagram story, it's breaking that something exists in real life, not just on the screen and not just digitally. And that's what those brands that aren't just pure play, that do have physical stores, can break through and break that kind of, I don't know, glass wall between yourself and your computer or yourself and your tablet.
Really interesting thought there. Alex, that's about all we got time for this week. Before we finish up, anything which you've been keeping an eye on lately?
I'm in the middle of planning my birthday party in a couple of weeks. So been doing a lot of like Pinterest and lots of consuming of these really traditional product discovery channels. Dare I say a little bit of like Google Shopping and seeing that new comparison element on Google Shopping. Also been looking at ChatGPT shopping as well. It hasn't blown my mind so far, but I want to keep an eye on.
Fantastic. I've been playing with Shopify Sidekick, actually. So last week in the middle of a client meeting, client asked a question around size curves. And very quickly, I was able just to query Shopify Sidekick and ask it about, based on the last few months of sales and looking at which products sold out first and units were sold first, it was able to recommend me a size curve. And it was pretty accurate because then I exported all the data, did the same analysis, and came to the same conclusion. And I was really, really surprised by that because that sort of analysis is something which people would put off or take days or weeks to do. Shopify Sidekick did it for me in about 15 minutes. I needed to massage it a little bit, but I thought that was kind of cool. So to have more of that available will hopefully continue to borrow from Search Springs parlance, to give merchants more superpowers, to be able to make smarter decisions around things like inventory management, buying, demand planning, which will hopefully keep more cash in your coffers and less tied up in dead stock.
Exactly. And, if you're doing anything, you should be automating so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That's all we got time for this week. Alex, pleasure to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to continuing to record more with you.
Me too.
But in the meantime, everyone, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep selling. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.